Hey BookTube, Shaketube 2018. This is where Lukash from Totally Pretentious, Steve Donahue, and Jason from Old Blues Chapter and Verse are hosting Shaketube, where we're going through Shakespearean plays. Each week they pick a Shakespearean play. You can read all three, or you can do some variation. My variation is I pick one play, I read that, and I just watch the other two through the magic of YouTube. This week I've done A Midsummer Night's Dream, which I have to start off with because you saw my thumbnail. Oh, there goes my paper. There's my my Shakes my prop, my Shakespeareana. It's a little bit of little picture. I don't know if you can get without all the multiple glares. That's bottom wearing the ass's head, probably sleeping with Titania. This is something we keep in our bedroom, so I guess that probably makes me bottom, just in the bottom sense. Being an ass, you can judge for yourselves on that. My other less Shakespearean related, though very personal memorabilia this week was I was flipping through the book and found this, which is a Fall Convocation 2002 ticket, which I believe is a ticket to my convocation from getting my BA in English at UVic. So that was sandwiched in my my textbook from UVic, which is quite is so a little memory lane there for myself. Probably not that as interesting to other people. So yes, this week, as you can tell by the picture, I read A Midsummer Night's Dream. Actually, it's interesting. This time, I only read A Midsummer Night's Dream. I watched the other two plays, Henry V and Troilus and Cressida. So, in some ways, I wonder if those fellows are being super sneaky and like they carefully selected plays that'll bounce off of each other. But then sometimes I wonder if it's just like this is the greatness of Shakespeare that all the plays seem to talk to each other and generate more. Like this is actually the way I would sort of recommend people get through Shakespeare. It's not like just do one play. It's like do multiple plays all at the same time and just see how they bounce off of each other. Because while Midsummer Night's Dream is the comedy and Henry V, I guess, is the history play. I'm not quite sure. I don't think it would be considered. It's a history play, and Troilus and Cressida is known as a problem play. Problem in the sense of sometimes it's a problem to read Shakespeare if you're slow off the mark as I am. And however much my education is. But it's a problem play in the sense that people don't know quite whether it's a comedy or it's a tragedy, because it seems to have elements of both. And, you could play it either way or, mix and match. So but it's interesting that even though that they kind of span like all these different kind of, I guess, genres in the theater, you look at the meat of the matter, what Shakespeare's going for. He seems to deal. You can see the same themes in each play. That A Midsummer Night's Dream, while it's the light, fluffy, crowd-pleasing comedy, it opens with Theseus, the Lord, saying, "Well, to Hippolyta, the Amazon queen, I've picked my notes up off the floor. That Hippolyta, I wooed thee with my sword and won thy love, doing thee injury. But I will wed thee in another key," which sort of gets into that. Well, there's a Shakespearean punning of sword with dick, because Shakespeare was all for the naughty, not the naughty things. But and I won thy love doing the injury. You could get into a lot of the myth, a lot of the kind of the backstories that you get. There's multiple backstories of did Hippolyta come with Theseus willingly or not? Did he capture her? Did he rape her? That's the did I win her love doing the injury? You can go as dark as you can with stuff like that. Or did she come willingly? This seems to say, in some sense, she did not come willingly, but that he wants to wed her in a different key. So we're already getting into that kind of that dark thing of there's been a very kind of brutal, unromantic start to their relationship, and now he seems to be putting on the kind of the courtly. And there's this definite sense of in Shakespeare of we're going to do. Of holding up these things of having like we had this in As You Like It of like there's the courtly idealized love where there's hardly like any contact of the lovers, and there's the whole kind of lust kind of we're having sex, and whether that's consensual sex or just we're both lusty and having sex, and then somewhere in the middle with the kind of the Rosalind and Orlando thing of kind of meeting those two together, and maybe that making something more sustainable, but also sort of the idea of does something of like bringing these two together, turn it into something which is it's a humane, and it funnels our animal instincts while at the same time satisfying some other instinct of ourselves. I often wonder if that's sort of what we're going for. What we're going for here is Shakespeare's is struggling to find what would actually be a true marriage of minds. To allude to something later, because I should allude, of course, to the sonnets as well, because Margaret Words everywhere is doing the sonnets, and I'm also enjoying doing a curated version of that. But so yeah, that sort of thing. There's also the idea of duty, because Midsummer Night's Dream opens with Hermia's father saying, "You have to marry Demeter," but she says, "But I love Lysander." And that is a theme that comes up in Troilus and Cressida, where she is in love. Cressida is in love with Lysander, but ends up, because her father has pulled her, said, "Nope, yoink, you're coming over here as a swap for prisoners, but also as your duty, you're going to actually have to be with somebody else." And I often think about that as, okay, well, why in our modern age are we sort of so interested in this? And for people in the West, this does not got to do with our parents saying who you have to marry anymore. But I wonder if there's sort of that same thing of the lust and the kind of the courtly, and that being like, I can be super attracted to some woman, but also understand sort of some of the practicalities. It's not courtly love now, but it's also the practicalities of, well, yeah, we have a physical attraction, but we're not going to actually be we're not actually going to be a good match for ourselves that way. It's almost like you have the I'm in love, whether that's courtly, whether that's romantic love or lusty love on one side, where you have the other side of, we don't fit together. We don't match. This isn't going to be something that's going to actually last for any amount of time, and we have to be practical. That's one of these things where we get the kind of the battle of the sexes, and that's another whole thing in these books, of the idea of women having to hold back, because that's the only power they have in this Shakespearean society, and even in their own of. Women are seen as the kind of the gatekeepers. They have to say yes. And why won't they say yes, says a lot of really petulant men. Why won't they just love me? Because they should love me, because I'm awesome. It's like, well, they've got their own things, and buzz off, buddy. But that's one of the things that Cressida has is like, I do love Cressida does love Troilus, but she has to go, oh, no, I have to pretend that I don't, because it's my only chip, my only power. And if I give that up, I'm defenseless in this society. And it's funny how that, you think this is like a Shakespearean play looking back on even further past time. It's probably reflecting the mores of his own time, but that being like, that's still sort of a dynamic that we have today. And it's like, why do we still have that dynamic? And I mean, I think it does come down to this inequality of powers of how many chips a male holds in our society, and how few chips it seems even now, romantically, in these kind of relationships, women do. But okay, I'm going everywhere. I'm going everywhere. But yeah, it's interesting how there's these different dynamics between the people. There's the kisses. Oh God. It's funny. Midsummer Night's Dream, I don't believe anyone actually kisses. It's the romantic comedy where, they've done there's all the wooing and stuff like that, but no one's gotten married yet, so there hasn't been any kissing. You could probably correct me on that. I'm sure you will. Whereas you have something like Henry V, where I'll get in a little bit more into Henry V at the end, but there's the whole thing of Henry V with Catherine, the conquered France's princess, and that he's going to get a kiss from her, and it's not a consensual kiss, and it's kind of played as this romantic thing, but in some ways it has all these echoes of England invading France and conquering and killing and dominating France. Is like it's played as a romantic thing. Oh yes, you're going to love me anyways. Well, I don't know why I'm giving Henry V this French accent, but and he kisses her, and he kisses her again in public as well. So it's like a complete domination, a complete subjugation, and it's like it's played as this romance in one sense, but in another sense, all I can think of, this is gross. But that's probably I have issues with Henry V as a dude, not as the play. Play is amazing, but the dude. But then yes, in Troilus and Cressida comes to the Greek camp, and she is made to kiss most of all the commanders, the Greek commanders, publicly, and it's just like this. It's like I listened to that, and I actually went back and I read, and it's just like, wow, that is deeply gross. And that, like, on the stage of a woman being made to kiss man after man after man, it's like you get the kind of the power and the grossness and the violation of that, and that her being put in some sort of place, and like, this is just, you are a chip, and you are, it was like, it's great, it's deeply uncomfortable, and that was quite wonderful. So between these plays, just this mix, I could talk for hours, so I will stop there on that particular. I will say Henry V is a play where, like, all his famous, like, we lucky few, and all these speeches, I hated him. I absolutely hated him for being so eloquent and so great at revving up his troops for war, for murder, for invasion. Probably not murder, because it's killing. It's not murder. If it's war, it's not murder. It's killing, because it's state sanctioned, and this is the king's thing behind it. And for every speech they'd have like that, it was actually interesting that you'd have stuff that would undercut it, or before, because Henry V opens with the church guys going, oh crap, Henry V's come to power. He's going to take all of our land. Let's get him to invade France. Let's push that agenda forward. So you see the very venal kind of like motivations behind people pushing Henry V, who also seems to want to assert his domination, his power over the thing. So you get that kind of venal stuff, even though it's like, oh, the right of glorious England, who's invading another country, which, I mean, the English and the French have hated each other for a long time. So it's funny that you could really, I always get that of like, you just talk to an Englishman about the French, and there's a certain kind of a scorn there. I know that side much more than I know the English side. And this is coming from Canada, where we are a combination of our so-called the only founding things of the settler part of this thing is the English on one side, on the French on the other, and the French being, conquered by the English and then treated like shit for a long time until they finally kind of rose up in their own way and inserted their own thing as stuff. So I feel that. I feel the tension there. And I mean, of England being such a place it was conquered originally by the French, and has such, like, our very language is an amalgamation of the French and the what was there beforehand. I'm not going to get into that. I'm blabbing, but this being such it's like in one sense of Henry V being used historically as just this jingoistic pro-war thing, which is one of those wonderful, interesting things with Shakespeare. Shakespeare can be shaped for his time. Everybody mixes and matches. You can chop out stuff in Shakespeare and put it on because, oh my God, he wrote super long plays. So like you have something like Hamlet, where, you know, I think Kenneth Branagh's version is like super, super long. So you realize how much regular productions chop out to shape their own Hamlets. And the same thing with Henry V. You can see, oh, we just chop out the parts that are kind of commenting on the past parts about how maybe all this jingoistic stuff, you know, you get the lower characters going, yeah, let's we've got to fill our pockets here. It's all the kind of all the venal, or like, you know, even like the most famous speech of all of Henry V kind of going the night beforehand, talking to the soldier, and the soldier like, yeah, great. I wish that Henry was just here on his own, because, you know, why did he bring us all into this to die? Like, is this even a just cause? He calls into question that, and it's like, you know, the king being very much like, you know, I don't answer to my people. It's a very complex actually speech, because complex interchange, and I'm not going to go into it right now because I don't have the tools and I don't have the concentration. It was one of these things of, both for Henry V and for Troilus and Cressida, I went, even though I listened to productions, both BBC radio productions, I believe, which were like 2.5 hours long, but I also went in and read parts and noticed things. In Troilus and so it was like, it's just this really fascinating thing. It's wonderful to get things performed. It's also really good to go back and get the full text of stuff. For Troilus and Cressida, it was such dense language that I found I had to just follow along with the text. And it was interesting, like, ooh, they skipped that. Ooh, they skipped that. You know, they tightened things up. I don't know. They had to hack things out to not make it a gigantically long thing. And I've gone on, and I'm at like 17 minutes. So I'm enjoying myself. Thank you guys. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for putting together a really interesting package of plays to kind of go through each week. It's been a challenge for me as a slow reader, as a slow listener, to get it all in, but it's been fun cramming all the Shakespeare into my head. And it's one of those things that, yeah, I can see this as a good starting basis for then kind of going back and doing these plays again and again and again. Because, yeah, I think that's the only way you can deal with something as dense and as complicated and as rich as this. And for all my talk of let me leave you with this sonnet, because it's interesting having Shakespeare just do a sonnet, which also has its all complexities. But I talked about this one. This is sonnet 116. Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments. Love is not love, which alters when it alteration finds, or bends with the remover to remove. Oh no, it is an ever fixed mark that looks on tempests and is never shaken. It is the star to every wandering bark, whose worth unknown, although his heights be taken. Love's not time's fool, though rosy lips and cheeks within his bending sickle's compass come. Love alters not with his brief hours and weeks, but bears it out even to the edge of doom. If this be error and upon me proved, I never writ, nor no man ever loved. Which I'll leave it there. I love it that we end with, if this be error. It's like Shakespeare is like, if this be error, think about that. If this be error. Yeah. So yes, thank you, you guys. Thank you, Mark at Words Everywhere, because the sonnets are actually a really good thing to read along with the plays. As something. Oh boy, this. I think my camera is moving slightly, but is something really good to move along with the plays, because it's interesting how they bounce off of each other. Shakespeare, for all his wide-rangingness, for all his great encompassing of the world, also really kind of there's things he centers around, or at least this is the thing I'm centering around. Maybe it's my my limited thing is I'm focusing on this little part of him, so I'm finding it everywhere in Shakespeare. Maybe I'm being my own best. I'm generating my own themes here. So with that said, yes, just imagine I'm wearing an ass's head. Bye for now.